Transit advertising, she says, is out-of-home media typically attached or found on the outside or inside of public transportation vehicles such as buses, subways, taxis and trains, or in the common areas of transit terminals and stations. Transit advertising is making its presence felt in the out-of-home industry. The efficacy of in-transit advertising in fostering brand identification and recall among consumers cannot be overemphasized. Well, joining us to discuss the growing power of transit advertising in Nigeria is the Chief Executive Officer of ValueMedia Advertising, Okwe Senbanjo. You're very welcome to the morning show. Thank you for joining us here.
Good morning.
Please do. Let's begin with the very necessary. Explain to us what the difference between static advertising and outside of the home transit advertising is.
Okay, so transit advertising, as you said, is the placement on advertisement on a transport or on a transport platform. So you have, say for example, in Nigeria now or in Lagos, you have your BRTs, you have your you also have your buses that you see going from point A to point B that will have a billboard on the back as well. So that is transit advertising. But your conventional advertising platforms will be your static billboards that you have scattered all over the state. So anywhere from Ikoyi to VI to the mainland, so Ikeja, Surulere, and things like that.
All right, LED billboards, that's LED billboards,
yes,
are relatively new and developing, yes, but they seem to have overtaken static billboards. So what is the major difference and the advantages of this LED? Is LED billboards, is it something as static?
No, so LED billboards are electronic. So what you have is that you have a billboard with made up of screens or screen units that would now allow you to push out electronic media. So it works like a big television screen. So you can have multiple advertising content go on to that billboard instead of just a static billboard where you have just one, which is mostly print. You have an actual physical print that will now be put onto that billboard so that it will be stagnant. You can have it should not be rotating. But on the LEDs that you have, because they're electronic, so the technology gives us the advantage to allow us to have multiple advertising campaigns on that platform. So you can have 3, 4, 5 campaigns rotating, and it's electronic, so everything is done digitally.
Okay, so when you say, before Femi comes in, when you say that I think it's transit advertising,
yes,
that it can't be turned off like a television,
yes,
delivers a varied audience and has a longer shelf life. What are you exactly inferring?
So with transit advertising, as I said, it's on a moving platform. So like Femi said in the introduction, maybe a BRT or on a bus. So what you have is that, and it's mostly fixed through transportation platforms that people are going through, so trains, buses, and etc. So if why it's so effective is because everybody has to move. Everybody has to go from point A to point B. So what you have is that you have millions of people using these transport platforms, trains, buses, etc. So as they move from point A to point B, they will be able to see what it is that you're advertising on those advertising transit platforms. Unlike your LED platforms or your static platforms or billboards that are just in one location, transit advertising moves, so it goes from one point to the other.
Indeed. So when we talk about LED ones, for example, if you were stuck in traffic,
yes,
I guess that would be a good time to be able to see an LED advertisement because they'd be changing and you'd be static. However, as you've said, when you're on the move yourself, transit advertising obviously has its own advantages. If we look at the London Underground, for example, I guess that's a good example of transit advertising because you see adverts every part of the journey. While you're waiting at the platform, you have posters around you. When you're on the train itself, you see the advertisements above your seats and behind you again. And then when you're on an escalator going out of the station, there's advertisements everywhere. So you'd think that in a sprawling city like Lagos, transit advertising is likely a no-brainer. In that instance, do you think there's any type of effect on pricing? Tell us what the price range is for transit advertising. Is it more cost-effective or less cost-effective than traditional forms of advertisements?
So it depends on the platform that you want. I will speak. Let me start with the BRT. The BRT is quite cost-effective because you're looking at roughly less than 200,000 naira to advertise on a moving bus, so on a BRT bus. But on the high end of it, so you're looking at your big LED screens, you'll be spending millions of naira to advertise, and that's per month. You'll be looking at millions of naira to advertise on those platforms per month. But I think with advertising, I think one of the things that sells, and that's what gives that platform value, is the eyeballs that it gets. So how many people or how many commuters or how many drivers or would-be buyers will see that advert at that location. So and that is what would translate to how much it is that you're going to charge on that platform. So like I said already, for example, BRT, because of the fact that they have such a huge scale, Lagos State has done a fantastic job from about 2007, from the BRT inception till now, where they've grown from having just about 100 to 120 buses at inception to over 1,000 buses now, and that has grown from one administration to the next. So 100 buses at the administration of Governor Fashola to I think Governor Sanwo-Olu just as of last month just commissioned an additional 550 buses onto that platform as well, onto that BRT platform. So you have volume. So the cost point on the BRT will be quite low because you have over 1,000 buses that you can advertise on. But on a billboard that is stagnant in a location, and also location is also key. So obviously if you are within a high net worth area like an Ikoyi, Victoria Island, or Lekki, where the financial pockets of people that live in that area is quite deep, then you would obviously will have a higher premium and more higher premium brands who want to advertise there. So the cost, that will also reflect on the cost as well. So there's so many factors that go into it.
Transit versus billboard, like saying Arsenal versus Liverpool on Monday. There is a misconception, though, that billboards target consumers better than transit. What's your own experience?
Well, our experience has not really been that case. We've found out that our platform has actually been more effective, talking about the transit advertising platform compared to the traditional billboard platform, so to speak. So, for example, you have a BRT TV. So, on the BRT buses, outside the fact that you have the fact that you can advertise on the body of the buses, you also have a television network inside the buses, and what you have is that it's a captivated audience that is captured inside that bus. So people would be able to watch content, different kind of content, and also be able to see adverts on that bus as they move from point A to B. And that has translated to be quite effective because what that has done now is that it has opened up advertising to a completely different demographic that might not be able to assimilate what you would normally push out because of the fact that there are various factors that they may not be able to get. I'm still using the BRT TV as an example. They may not be able to get on a conventional television network. So because of the fact that maybe in their homes they may not have power, so they may not be able to watch the TV and so on and so forth. But on the BRT TV, because you're going to work and you have to get from home to work. So once you board the BRT bus, you are seeing the BRT television. You'll be able to catch whatever information that you'll be able to get on that, and then that will be more effective than a conventional, traditional form of advertisement. So it's in our sector, or we've seen that the transit advertisement is growing and it's becoming more effective and also the impact that it also has on the commuter. So for example, if I live in Ikorodu and a bus is branded and on the BRT bus that goes from Ikorodu to CMS TBS, that means instead of just having a billboard in Ikorodu, that only people in Ikorodu will be able to see it, my billboard that goes from Ikorodu to CMS TBS would every single person that lives within that corridor from CMS to CBS, and that's about 33 kilometers, will be able to see what I'm advertising on that bus. So we've seen that transit advertising is starting to become, if not more effective, but as effective as traditional advertising.
Understood. So where you're talking about advertising in the sense that you want to have as many eyeballs on your advert as possible, that does make sense. However, I mean, you touched on this earlier, but what role does demographic play in the types of products and or services on offer at transit, using transport as a means of your advertisement? I wonder if, because I know earlier you're talking about, high net worth areas, and if you're talking about, casting that net wider, what role does demographic play in this, if at all, if any?
Demographic plays a key role, and but that also goes to the client. So the person that is that wants to push out the product or service. If you are an FMCG, so that wants to focus on the mass market, so looking at a platform that can give you access to that mass market is where you're going to be focused on. If you are a telco, if you're a bank, and you're trying to push out a retail product that's going to go out to everybody, and you're trying to penetrate the market as deep as possible, then you know that, okay, fine, I want to have a platform that can get into everywhere. So you look at platforms that focuses on that demographic. Which is the reason why an FMCG or a telco or a bank that's focused on retail products will focus on a BRT or a kind of platform so that they can push all those information out. But on if I am a product that is only meant for an elite group of people, and I'm trying to push it out to just a few set of people, I might decide that, okay, fine, I want to only target people that I know that has the financial capacity to pay for that product and service. So I will only target it within an environment or a catchment area that has the demographic of people with big, deeper pockets, so to speak. So you would only focus within that sector. So it depends on the client that will now determine how the demographic play, because different advertising platforms focuses on different demographics. If you're trying to focus on a younger demographic, you might say that, okay, fine, you want to focus on digital advertisements to focus more on social media and things, because you have more of a youth participation within that platform. So it depends on the client themselves.
All right. Okay, go.
I just wanted to, it all makes sense, doesn't it? Because the average person spends between 9 to 11 hours outside of their home.
Yes.
And so it does make sense to make sure that while they are spending so much time outside, they're able to be exposed to all of these different levels of adverts. But I wanted to ask you, since we're looking at the exponential growth of transit advertising, how conscious do you think people are during those hours of the images that they're seeing, on their commutes? It is. I wonder if it's. Do we have enough time?
No, it doesn't seem like.
No.
Maybe he has to hold on.
Okay, we're going to take a very short break. Once we come back, we'll give you the chance to answer that question. Please do stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We are still joined by the CEO of ValueMedia Advertising, Senbanjo. Thank you for staying with us. Before we went on break there, I was asking you about your thoughts on the fact that we know people usually spend between 9 to 11 hours outside of the home. So once again, transit advertising would be a no-brainer because of the growth that we've been seeing. But in terms of that time people spend outdoors, how conscious do you think people are to not only being exposed to adverts, but internalizing them, and then you'd imagine engaging with them to make purchases?
Okay, so I think people are quite engaged. I believe that, especially when you're moving from point A to B. So take a typical day, for example. If you are leaving your house at 7 a.m. in the morning, and the first thing that you see would be a product or service telling you to buy, say, a product for breakfast. There's no how that, and then you get onto the BRT bus, and then you enter the bus, and you're seated. on the BRT TV, you see that same product telling you that you should also have something for that same product for breakfast. There will be a high chance that by the time you get to work and you want to have breakfast for work, the first thing that'll come to your mind will be, oh, let me have this product for breakfast. So that is so it's something that we believe that is quite effective, especially if the narrative from that advert is quite spelled out. So people absorb it, and there's also things that they call subliminal advertising. So you might be looking at something and you not in your subconscious is actually going into processing into your brain, and you yourself are not actually aware of what that you're actually processing that, and it's actually disseminating into your brain and into your subconscious. So what you find is that by the time you get into the supermarket or you want to buy a product or service, it is that information that you saw maybe at 6 p.m. in the afternoon, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you're going back from work, or when you are driving to a meeting that you saw on the BRT bus, or you saw on an LED that would now inform that decision when you're trying to buy that product or services. Right. So it is quite effective.
Right, but let's backpedal a bit. So what led to the development of this type of advertising? In other words, how did it originate? And why are people or companies buying into it? And at the risk of you repeating yourself, the major attraction and advantages, or, if you like, disadvantages? So
it started as a value-added service. I would say predominantly in 2007 with the BRT, with the conception and initiation of the BRT system in Lagos State. So as I mentioned before, I think that was conceived during the administration of Governor Tinubu, and then it was executed. Executed with the Fashola administration. And what we now saw was that in 2015, Governor Ambode commissioned 434 of those buses into the system that expanded the BRT route from Mile 12 to CMS-TBS to all the way to Ikorodu. And then now you've now seen Governor Sanwo-Olu also expand that platform as well, going towards the Iyanopaja, Ayobo area. So what we now have is that we have a BRT platform that covers the entire state, and you have these huge buses that are 30 feet wide that are dotting from one point to another. So obviously, in 2007, I think it was seen that this could be a value-added service similar to what they do all over the world in cities like London, Tokyo, New York, where you can use these buses as an advertising platform. So that started. We also, I think in 2010, now off of the back of that, started the BRT television network. And that has now grown from a platform of just about 5 to 10 screens to a platform now that is on about 634 buses. So it is something that as the platform, the BRT platform is growing, and from what we're hearing from the state government, they are going to continue pushing that platform to grow. You would have this transit advertisement also growing as well. So it is something that. I think, as I said, it originated from that concept, and it was now seen as a value-added service that we could offer to clients and commuters, and also to the public sector, because the platform has also been used to push out a lot of information by the government in regards to different policies and programs that they are pushing, that they would like to do, or they are doing, or they've done. So that is basically how it was started, and that's where we are right now.
All right, I talked earlier about a misconception. Some other school believe that that's not the case. I mean, you remember the discussion we had on misconception?
Yes.
Some other school believe that that's not the case, that if transit is executed well, the phrase is executed well, it'll get more mileage for whoever employs that sort of advertising. Give us a picture of executing it well for optimal results.
Okay, execution is basically what we do. So if a client wants to push his product or service out, they come to us and we make sure that we execute that campaign properly. Now, or effectively. So I'll give you a typical example. If a client A decides that he wants to come onto the platform, one of the first things that we do is that because of the fact that we do understand that we are in Nigeria at the end of the day and within Lagos State, so there are various things that can happen to those buses that might accidents, during the rainy season, you might find some of the buses being dirty. So that's one of the things that we've chosen to work with very, very competent bus operators. And if you've seen the growth of the BRT structure, you've seen that the competence level of bus operators has also grown as well. So if you look at in 2007 when it started, when it was being handled predominantly by the NURTW, now you have private sector operators such as Primero Transport Services and other bus companies coming, TSL, other bus companies coming in into that sector to give it the, would I say, good structure and good corporate governance that it needs. So the effectiveness starts to become, and the execution start looking quite good for the product owner. So you have a situation where I cannot give you certain guarantees that if your bus is damaged, or if your campaign is damaged during the duration of that you've paid me to run that ad, I would transfer it to another bus for you at no cost to you, or I will print the material out for you, rebrand the bus, make sure that it's done at no cost to you. Or we'll work with the operator to ensure that, okay, this number of buses are dirty, we need them to be cleaned because, and we've seen that the rate at which we had to tell them 10 years ago is different from now, because now, all these major bus operators that are coming in now have huge infrastructures. So if you take Primero, for example, now if you go to their depot yard in Majidun, you see.
We don't mind if you stop calling the names of those.
I'm so sorry.
They're not paying for it.
Sorry, apologies. So if you see one of the bus operators in the corridor access, if you go to the bus yard, you see huge bus washing terminals that they wash their buses, and they have something similar in Ojota. And I'm quite aware that other bus operators that are coming into the transport sector are doing the same thing. So what we now find is that the confidence level from clients is starting to get better. So even major clients, major FSCG brands that did not want to be part of the BRT's infrastructure as of 2010, 2013, now have campaigns running hundreds of buses because of the fact that they've seen that, okay, fine, this platform is getting better, this platform is being effective, this platform is being efficient. So it is something that it has given confidence to not just anybody, but the premium brands that we all know, so that this platform itself is good enough to push their products and services.
At this point in time, we have less than a minute left to go. At this point in time, using Lagos as an example, I mean, which medium do you think is making more headway? The transit advertising or static?
I think the BRT transit advertising is making good headway. Traditional media, we cannot go away from traditional media. If a complex market like that you have in the UK, you still find that all this media work together exactly. So you have LEDs, you have transit, you have static. Everything is working together. So the space is big enough. So like I said, it will also depend on the client.
We have to cut you short there. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a really interesting discussion.